What are you doing, man?
Hey, for you copy all this?
Come on over. I ain't gonna hurt you.
The actions of Chad Doerman are the reason I support the death penalty. For these monsters, I have no sympathy, no mercy, nothing. On June 15th, at around 4:15 in the afternoon, a mother called 911, desperately asking for help and saying her babies were shot. 3 minutes later, another woman called 911, saying she found a 16-year-old girl running down the street with a puppy in her arms, hysterically crying and saying her stepfather shot every member of her family. First responders rushed to the address, and what they found there will haunt them for the rest of their lives. This is the case of Chad Doerman, a father who executed his 3 little boys in cold blood in front of their mother after months of planning. Chad is a 32-year-old man from Ohio, and he is married to Laura. Before meeting Chad, Laura had a baby girl from a previous relationship, and she raised her with her new husband. Alexis, now a teenager, 16 years old, witnessed the tragedy that unfolded just 5 days ago in Claremont. Chad and Laura had 3 kids of their own, 3 little boys ages 3, 4, and 7, named Hunter, Clayton, and Chase. The brothers played baseball at their school, and they had their last game on Wednesday, June 14th. Their coaches described them as happy, driven children who loved to be on the field playing sports. They all lived in New Richmond, Claremont County, in a 3-bedroom house. On June 15th, for reasons we have yet to discover, Chad Doerman lined up his 3 sons and shot them execution style on their front yard. One of the little boys tried to run, but his father, the man that was supposed to protect him, chased him down, returned him to the family home, and murdered him without blinking. What you're about to see next is the body cam footage of the police officers who arrived at the house. Please be advised that this is not easy to watch, and it's not easy to hear the screams of the mother in the background.
Where's he at?
Hey, shooter stand the porch.
Get him right here. You got him on the porch.
We've asked about the last place we've been told.
You show me your hands now! Stand up and walk towards us! Stand up now! Walk towards us! Stand up with your hands up!
We know we got a visual in the mail. Not showing his hands, not following commands.
Stand up
I'm
now!
not showing hands, so we're following commands. His name is Chad Doerman. Chad Doerman.
I know, but we can't.
If you're going in first aid and he's not complying, you don't use the shooter, shoot him.
We gotta find cover first. We ain't no good if we ain't safe ourselves. Hey, no. We need to come from this side where we can see them. Don't take cover behind her. We see them. We're going to approach from this side. We got cover. Right here.
6 numbers, 29 and 63 type up.
I'm up here right now.
Show us your fucking hands now! Stand up! Stand up! Stand up! Stand up now! Stand up! Stand up! Up!
EMS is staged and air carriers are going to go ahead and fly whenever any units can arrive.
Get your hands up here.
72.
Let's cover 21. It's in the air.
So you guys can confirm that there's people in the first aid, and that's the shooter. He's not complying. They need to take care of the
I got it.
victim. They have to show him the shooter.
He's really trying to hurt my body. I'm completely sober.
63, we're 21. Get the EMS over here.
Well, I'll be drugs with a flip, but I'm going to be drugs now. I'm sober. I'm not trying to put you.
63.
Get your butt inside. Gatlin, get your butt inside.
We on primary?
Now.
29, we got 3 kills now.
3 kids down, 16 up.
Gatlin,
63, we're 21. Have EMS respond over here.
You're clear, they're being advised.
Robert 34, just started mass custody response.
63, do you want them to respond to the Laurel Lindale address? Where exactly do you need them?
We're right in the front yard. What are you doing, man?
Hey, pretty copy all that.
Got all over? I ain't gonna hurt you. I ain't gonna hurt
You
nobody.
got anything on you?
No, I ain't got nothing, man. Phone, that's it. I ain't mad, I ain't nothing. Just make sure that dog don't come out. I don't think he'll bite you. Just don't reach for him and try to grab him and pet him. He won't bite you.
What's going on, man?
Nothing. Can I stand up? It's kind of uncomfortable.
I'm gonna
I
get
ain't
you
gonna do
here in a
nothing. I ain't
second.
running away. You can do whatever you want.
Here. You the only one else inside the house?
What?
You the only one else inside the house? Sit down right here.
My daughter, she ran her to the fire department.
Sit down.
It's my stepdaughter.
Put him in that cage.
This is look.
They're all being advised. They've requested two additional medics. There's also air crews flying, so they need an LV and then a copy. Yes.
Can you get the wallet out of my back pocket? Shut up, dude.
21.
You had to ride from me inside with the fucking music.
Call that on an officer right now. Yeah, 90 is where Jeep and Caston's away. 34.
As you saw, Chad Doerman was calm and collected. He displayed more interest in his dog who was barking than in his kids he just shot. He confessed to the crimes and even explained the murders didn't just happen because he snapped, but he planned them for over 3 months. The next clip you'll see is from his arraignment, and this is a different face of Chad. The prosecution describes what happened, and they ask for the highest bond they have ever had to ask.
And the facts I have for you at this point are as follows. The trauma that this man has inflicted on his family, the community, law enforcement, first responders, and all of the rest of us who have any idea what's going on here is unspeakable. There's been a full admission in this case, Judge. The case is still new. We're still discovering facts. But the evil horror of what we know is impossible to process. In an act of just incomprehensible cruelty, the father that stands before you lined up his 3 young boys, and he executed them in his own home with a rifle. They were ages 3, 4, and 7, Judge. In an act of desperation to save her children, the mother at some point grabbed the gun that father was wielding to attempt to protect them. We know that one of the boys was able to flee into a field near his home. And again, we know from his admission, father hunted that boy down, drug him back to the property, and executed him in front of witnesses. The mother was shot through the hand in her attempt to protect her children. Judge, I asked the court setting this bond to just begin to imagine their fear. This was the man that every day they woke up looking to for protection, love, guidance in all things. Man they trust more than any other person on earth. person they rely upon to keep them safe from harm. He was their world, he was their guardian, and he executed them in cold blood. We know that from his admission. By that same admission, Judge, he has committed one of the most monstrous, craven, cowardly acts that will ever be our misfortune to see. To make things even more disturbing, Judge, this was no haphazard act. Again, by his own admission, he planned the events of this day. This did not happen on a whim. He's confessed to what I believe is the worst crime, at least I hope, that I'll see in my lifetime. I hope it's the worst fact pattern that ever comes before this court. Judge, it's important for the court to know, and the bond we're going to request today, for the court to understand, Claremont County deputies, Monroe Township Fire and EMS, and other first responders bravely respond to the scene where they don't know what's going on. They did not know what they're facing, and they come into a scene that no one can ever be prepared for. No law enforcement training, no training of any kind prepares you for this. It's easy to forget that these are men and women with families, children, feelings, emotions. They're not some automaton performing a delegated function. They're people. They were required to give CPR to gunshot children, 3, 4, and 7-year-old children. They held these boys in their arms, knowing there was nothing they could do to save them. How long do those scars last? What day do you wake up from that and you're healed? How do you unsee such an abomination? The bond factors this court needs to consider today are set forth in Criminal Rule 46, nature and circumstance of the crime charged, and specifically whether the defendant used or had access to a weapon, including the seriousness of the offense. It's the most serious offense that we have on the books, Judge. This is it. You can't commit a more serious offense. So the nature of the crime charged is the worst crime that can be charged. Did he have access to a weapon? Yes, obviously he did. The weight of the evidence against the defendant at this point, Judge, we stand here with a full admission of the defendant. That also goes to the confirmation of the defendant's identity, and witnesses on scene did see at least part of what happened. Next, the court is to consider the likelihood this person would return to court if a bond were issued. Again, this is the most heinous crime with the most severe penalty under the law that we presented to the grand jury. That alone would be a major factor in discouraging a person from availing himself to this court or any other. And the thought to flee and the likelihood of flight is great in the state's opinion. The danger he poses to the community is a factor that this court can consider, and I think with the facts in front of you, Judge, we can't name a person that poses a greater threat to the community. As his prior record goes, Judge, it is fairly minimal. He was charged with domestic violence in 2010. He is not, to my knowledge, on probation community control. Judge, the facts of this case are hopefully like no other we will ever see. When this case gets indicted in the Court of Common Pleas, I am certain that a no bond hearing will be held, and I would hope that would be granted. But at this point, at this juncture, we're going to ask this court to issue a bond we've never asked for before. I'm going to ask for a bond of $20 million. I hope I never need to request such a bond again.
Thank you. Date for preliminary hearing?
The date for the preliminary hearing, Judge, is 6/26.
No objection. The preliminary hearing will be set for June 26th at 1 p.m. At this point in time, bond's going to be set in the amount of $20 million cash or surety. Anything else at this time, Mr. Guest?
No, Judge.
Mr. Gallo? Mr. Kalman, anything further?
Nothing at this
All
time.
right, thank you.
The preliminary hearing will take place on June 26th. That's when Doerman will have to plead guilty or not guilty. I personally think he will plead not guilty by reason of insanity, or he will take a plea deal of guilty to spend the rest of his life in prison but avoid the death penalty. Ohio does still have the death penalty in place, even if the state is not rushing into performing executions. I said in the beginning that we don't know the reasons for which this monster did such a horrible thing, and the reality is there is no reason in the world that he could give to clarify this. There is no valid motive for murdering his own little boys. I don't usually state my personal opinion when talking about a case, but if the death penalty should be given for something, this is what it should be given for.